Hi everyone, welcome to Tech Talks. Today we have a live Q&A with the ENTP personality. And so Boris, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Sure. I believe I'm ENTP. I live in Toronto. I run a local MBTI group with an N focus. Anybody's welcome. I only run it because I like the people in the group because the guy before me tried to ditch it. And that's how I kind of met Joyce by association. Not directly. We met it was a personality hackers event, I believe, in Toronto.
Yeah, good SI, Boris. And so would you like to tell us a bit about your first function, extroverted intuition?
Sure. NE, I would say, is every every ENTP's and ENFP's bread and butter. To me, it's sort of the seer of all possibilities. It's almost like a compulsive little child that runs around saying, "Oh my God, look at that! Oh my God, look at that! Okay, how do these relate?" Um, it's almost you cannot not use it. I think if you're an NE Dom, it's something that needs to be constrained by probably TI or something else. It gives me a lot of joy. It makes me seek novelty, not so much in a direct experiential way, but just seeing connection is something that excites me. New things and figuring out how they relate. And I believe that's the epitome of NE.
Yeah, a good example of NE is Robin Williams, who I believe to be an ENFP. Yeah, so if you wanted to see an example of that, it's making desperate interconnections between seemingly unrelated fields that are actually related. So it's transcontextual thinking, as Darian already puts it. And so, Boris, what is your experience of introverted thinking, TI, your auxiliary function?
Yeah. Well, to me, TI is the thing that has to rein in NE because NE would just go crazy, sit in a corner and be seizing, and thinking about all the possibilities. TI is actually the function I probably trust the most because it is. I mean, it's by its own nature rigorous and trying to be self-consistent, and I see it as a filter that is broad. And that was an interesting sound. It's brought information by an E and just filters it down and tries to build sort of a rational structure in the background of the object or concern that you're focusing on.
Yeah, that's a good example or description of introverted thinking. If I seem distracted, I think someone's trying to bring me bubble tea from outside because I'm very Asian, and that's our replacement water. It's bubble tea. Anyways, Boris, what is your relief function extroverted feeling feel like in your experience?
I didn't know it's called the relief function. I really relieve myself when I'm using FE, but FE, I mean, extroverted feeling is the most accessible form of feeling to me by its very nature and definition. It kind of tries to understand what's happening around me, especially in a group context. I find it very useful. I'm not very utilitarian. It gives me almost an effortless insight into how I believe other people work from their own frame of mind. Like I don't have to pull it in. If I see a little kid that drops its ice cream and starts crying, I know how he feels. Now it doesn't mean I have to be like him, I have to pretend to be him. It's sort of an instant having a mental model of how does this person experience the current situation. And I mean it gives me a connection. It's probably the one thing that I mean, if I didn't have it, I could be quite robotic because TI is sort of a lonesome thing. It helps me connect with people, understand them, and also gives me the desire to understand them and also make them happy within reason, right? So,
Yeah, and you're excellent at that. How about your experience with your repressed function, introverted sensing, SI?
what? What?
These are like different names for
What?
the
No, I
function.
mean, SI, what's SI? SI? Do I have to admit to using SI? No. Yeah, it's a least loved child. To me, SI is a very utilitarian thing. I need it. I do use it. To me, it's a store of my current representation, what I believe the collection of all facts accessible to me are in the background based on past experience. I don't value it as much. To me, it's more like it's a drawer full of information or it's like an accounting report, but it's a thing that other things like NE use. For example, NE, I mean, I feel NE can work in a context of being directly exposed to external information. But NE, when it's bored, it can just say, "Oh, let me look in that drawer SI," and I can spend days by myself NEing over what's stored in SI. It's not my preference, but it's basically yeah, it's a store of information that's necessary. I don't let it rule me, so I'm not like a total neat. For guess you can see, I'm just drying all my shirts behind me. But I appreciate its necessity. It's not my favorite function.
Makes sense. What is your relationship with routines, Boris?
Routines, necessary evils. Necessary evils. Yeah, I mean, as you age, and I have a few gray hairs, you see there is some benefit to routine, but too much routine is stifling. And predictability in general, which probably relates to, I mean, NE being the dominant function. I think the general act of exploring and trying to make connection is related probably to dopamine, and dopamine is related to pleasure. So SI is sort of on the opposite side of the spectrum, right? Sorry, your question. Actually, no, I lost you. I was on a tangent. What was the original question?
It was about SI and your experience with it.
Okay, still okay. I was. Yeah. So it's. Oh, you were asking me about order or being organized. Necessary evil. You do as much as you need, but only genius masters chaos, and I'm arrogant and aspiring. So too much order is stifling.
Makes sense, yeah. Words you'll hear a lot from EP types is feeling restricted or stifled by eliminating of options really quickly. And so I'm wondering, we are on to the questions, everyone. So Katie asks, do you prefer asking questions or answering questions? Thank you. Smiley face.
I guess they're asking me, right? Your turn is Joyce will be right after. In
Yeah.
general, I think I do prefer asking questions because I mean I can direct the acquisition of things that are of interest to me, but I don't mind. It's like a let's say 48 50 52 48 preference. This is outside of scope of MBTI, but I believe blast is probably not my first, although you may disagree with that in terms of objective personality. Um, I do prefer asking, but I kind of like both. I also like sharing.
Cool. Yeah, that's a nice answer. If I seem out of it during this stream, I did not sleep last night, so I'm kind of coasting. I feel a little bit out of body. And
That's
Boris
what
is
happens when
also.
you do LSD. It keeps you up more than a day. I heard. I wouldn't know.
How have you dealt with SI?
How have I? Well, I've put it in its place. I found it a little a filing drawer. I stuck it in. That's like, this is your world. You stay in there. Don't come out unless summoned.
Wow, you're a feisty one, Boris. Did Boris need more time to charge his phone? I'm kidding.
Hey.
Question for Boris. Did you think about typology before you got into it? What about now? Oh, what did you think about typology before?
I thought it was total bullshit. I thought it was what I would now say the ESFJ lady in HR, and this is a pun because Joyce is an HR person. That's what the lady in HR uses to put a tag on me to kind of interview me for a technical position that she has no clue about, and then put me in a bucket and label and judge me accordingly. That was my first impression. I by fluke ran into MBTI actually, which was well, I had a date that got sick on me, called off, and I was in the middle of nowhere. And then I said, "Oh, it's a nice Friday night. Let's not waste this." So I went through my phone and said, "Oh, meetup, something just around the corner. MBTI. Let's go check it out." So it turned out to be the group I'm leading now. It's it was the first meetup they had. It was then run by an INTJ and ENFP that both basically just wanted to find dates in the N community. But in short, I walked in there and for the first time I had an experience of, wow, this was a meetup where 8 out of 10 people or more even I could have a really interesting conversation with, which is unusual because I mean, I used to go out a lot. And so I kind of was sold on the shared N connection because I find it's easier to have a good time with N folks. Nothing against S DOMs or Oxes. And based on that experience, I just stuck around and now I'm kind of running the group, which I mean, ENTPs, we don't like to run things. We do it if nobody else does. I think we do an okay job, but we sort of lead from behind. And if anybody else wants to hop in, let them have it. Just don't be a soup Nazi, because then I'll step in.
Yeah, you stayed in the type community because of the feeling of home that it gave you.
Yes, and then later on, I mean, once I got to know the cognitive functions, I actually see value in it, and not in a utilitarian sense of understanding people and interacting with them more effectively. Not so much to manipulate them, although sometimes you can do that too. But it's just understanding of self and others and how we all can get along to make that FE happy.
All right, all right, all right. And so, what is your relationship with ISFJs?
They're me upside down. I find ISFJs they're quite a few. I've met quite a few. They're lovely creatures. It's interesting they have the same functions, but turn out to be very different. I mean, I appreciate their gentle nature. Um, Sometimes they're a little timid, and I often tell ISFJs if they were. I haven't really dated any because I'm thinking I might be too dark for them. At some level. But I mean, they're lovely creatures to be around. Sometimes I may exhaust them. They might not tell me at the moment, but they're one of the most likable types, I find.
Hey, what's dark about you?
Not my hair.
You're so
What
witty.
is not dark about me?
Oh, I
Do
did
you
not
want
type
to
you as
know?
an
Do you
ENTP.
really want to know? You need to have a good night's sleep before I can disclose that.
Absolutely, yeah. So I did not type Boris. He runs the local MBTI meetup near my area, and he's really
And that's
funny.
why I get to be the bully. I run it. You want to join? You want? Sorry, I'm ENTP.
You always bully me by joking around, poking at my insecurities, and trolling me.
It's called exposure therapy. You'll thank me.
Wow. Do you know great examples of ENTPs and the use of their functions in fiction or media, or at least that you relate to?
Okay, this seems to be specific to fiction and media, so I won't jump on Feynman because he's actually real. Um, yeah, I would say some of the Doctor Who characters are probably ENTP. I mean, people argue with which one's ENFP and ENTP. Um, yeah, I would say Doctor Who, not, I think the 12th and the 13th. Not 3 ago and 2 ago. I forgot David Tennant, for example. I believe he is ENTP. Some people think he's ENFP, but yeah, it's sort of the general outset. Playful, slightly mischievous, mm, not having any ill intent towards anybody, and kind of caring about, in a sort of detached way, of, about people around them, which is not a stereotype for ENTPs, but I think it's part of our fabric, just at a less perceptible level.
Really awesome. And so, what concepts or thought systems helped you identify or clarify your type?
Um, I mean, I've tested a couple times. There are good tests, bad tests. I've tested ENFP. I've tested even INTJ in a co, which I can see why when I'm under not so much stress, but if the deadline's to be met in a work context, all of a sudden I get this clarity, this calm, and I become very focused in a way that I would imagine an INTJ to be. Probably it's not the same. Um, But to step back, well, I tried to educate myself on the functions, and then I said, look, I think NE is probably out of question my dominant function. Joyce may think otherwise, and that doesn't leave too many options. Then I look at FI versus TI, and I'm very certain that I'm TI because FI is sort of a function that when I encounter it in others, it's just as valid as TI, but it's the one that I often struggle most with because it's so contrast to TI. FI as a store of personal value, I think FI DOMs or oxes, they instantaneously know how they feel about something, if it's good or bad or goes along with what they are about. And I really don't have that at all. And in fact, for me, logic is the thing that I hold on to under duress, which is TI. So once I have NETI, the rest follows. And I can also relate to FE because I do care about group dynamics. I mean, it's almost this is a tangent, typically NTP thing. I was wondering, am I in the objective personality system, am I a jumper, which means am I NEFETISI or am I NETIFESI? The objective personality system allows for FE being second. I don't think I am because it's just context dependent. At the core, I think TI I value more, but if I'm in a social environment, especially someone's being bullied or vulnerable, then FE steps in the forefront. And maybe Joyce can relate to that too, because FE and TI are both in the middle. You can sort of have them have a peaceful coexistence where one steps back in favor of the other. So, I mean, that rationale, NE, yes. TI, not FI, yes. I already found ENTP. Jumper, yes, maybe, but that's the inference chain I went through.
Yeah, and because ENTPs have TI and FE in the middle of their stack, they toggle between it. So I noticed a common ENTP vibe is detached because of the TI, but showy because of the FE. And so you'll have that type of, if you like to type people through. I know that's one of the behavioral clues, but not to be taken totally seriously. But Boris,
you just hurt me by calling me showy. That really hurts. I mean, I have these calm shirts behind me, and you call me showy. This is terrible. That hurts my FI.
I'm
F
here.
you. Where's your FE? You hurt my FI.
That's what I live for. And so, what about your younger years was a clear indication of your type in hindsight?
Boop, 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 boop. I would say, not in extreme sense, a little bit of a class clown, but very sort of strategic when I was a kid. And now I can say, oh,
Oh
Joyce,
no,
are you with us? Are you with
I'm
us?
sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. I mean, I assume you didn't mute me because I go, okay, go get some bubble
I
tea,
was just
girl.
asking for the bubble tea.
You know, that's not bubble tea. That's chunky square tea. That's not real bubble tea. There's
Wow.
no bubbles in there.
Do you want to fight?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Sorry, to return from my tangent to the question. Um, yeah, I mean, what specifically ENTP? Like sort of a playfulness. I would hang out with the nerds, but I'd also be comfortable socializing with different groups. One guy who thought my best friend was like the super jock, but really, I often felt like an outsider on the inside, but everybody thought I was in their group, and I didn't. It's not like I despised them, but I was my own person, and I was in their group, but the group didn't define me. Now I'm not sure if that is necessarily an ENTP, but there might be a bit of a standoffishness where we're saying I don't need to belong, I can choose to belong. Um, Now younger, if it goes beyond high school, I cruised to high school. I was really lucky. I mean, math, physics stuff came easy to me, but I think we can be, at least at an early age, kind of wasted potential, right? Like I've done okay, but I mean, my first degree, I ended up with like a B plus average, but I was just just having fun, not partying in a hardcore sense, and always studying the day before the day before the exam. But then I had an awakening when my parents' business almost failed, and I was trying to help them. And then when I was in engineering, I said, you know what, I'm going to study the day before the day. So 2 days before the exam made a huge difference. Like I graduated second in my class just on account of that, because before I would always the random schedule of when an exam was set would determine my final marks when I was in physics, because it's hard to read a quantum book that thick in a week. So it's common because we're so distractible, and things like money are not motivators for us. I was accepted to med school in Germany before I even uh, went to university because I wanted to do physics. I mean, in medicine, I now appreciate differently, but it's just we might waste potential that some other people would value more, like getting into med school right out of high school, and having a path that makes you a CEO or a member. We will. Some of us may be roadkill. I might become roadkill, or we tend to succeed late. But it's early on. We're just too distractible. So many interesting things out there. Why focus on one?
Well said. And so, how do you relate to SI and SE in your inferior and demon position? So,
Ladies
shadow
first.
function galore.
Ladies first. She asked both of us.
This is for ENTPs. Your
How do
demon
you?
function is extroverted sensing.
Oh, how do you both, as in not the two of us? Okay. Well, as I said, it's the thing that rules my closet, and I keep that closet tight. There's no room for expansion. If it wants to store more, it's got to chuck some stuff. It should know that it says I. That should come natural to me, to it. And SE, I kind of, I think I can enjoy it because, mind you, it might be tied to FE. I mentioned that in other talks we had. For example, I do sports for me were always, yeah, I was okay in soccer, but they were all very individual. I played table tennis competitively. And also I like to dance. Like I salsa dance, I did some swing dancing. And I actually derive a lot of pleasure from it. There's something nice in experiencing a moment in the sensory. And ideally if it's also appealing to FE, like dancing is perfect. You have a 5-minute affair with a complete stranger. You negotiate something. It's not scripted. You share an experience. The person might, you may see the person like, this person is not attractive to me, like just by my personal preference. But then in the dance, something develops, and somebody that has no appeal to you, just because of the chemistry you have, the movements you share, and the dialogue, it's a great experience. And for that moment, that person is your total focus. You have a shared experience. That's SE. It doesn't come easy to me. I had to, like somebody like an ESTP, they just pick stuff up and it's in their vibe. For me, it's, I need to try, I need to break it into pieces. Then I assemble them all. And then all of a sudden I own a movement and I know every aspect of it. And then I can enjoy it. But it has to first be disassembled, then put together. But then I own it. Because I find some AC don't say do stuff, but then you ask them, how did you do that? Where's your weight? Why does this work? Why does this not work? They struggle with that. I'm much slower, but I think I'm more precise. And then I really enjoy the moment, almost slow mo.
We need to see a video of you salsa dancing one day.
I haven't danced in 2 years, but I had some old ones. But
What is the most and least stereotypically ENTP thing about you?
most stereotypical and least.
I can comment on it because I know you a bit too.
Sure, and I also would comment.
There's this quick-witted poking you like to do with people, with me, for example. It's this joking where you'll see a opportunity to NE make a joke about me and also FE see my reaction. And so sometimes you'll just kind of poke the bear. I'm the bear. And so that's very stereotypically ENTP. It's almost getting a reaction out of people because it's funny or it's mischievous. So
I call it map. It's almost mapping. It's actually, I like to connect. I think that's FE. But it's almost like it's one way of connecting. It's sort of testing boundaries in a playful way. It gives me joy, but it also, most people that I'm close with, I very quickly get to know them within the course of a few hours or a day. This is how most of my close friends, it was like spend a night talk, and this is guys and girls alike, right? Talking a night or testing boundaries, but it also helps me to learn, get to know the person very quickly. My analogy is it's almost like radar. It's like I throw ping pong balls at you, they're bouncing back. All of a sudden, I have an image of who you are, but you have to be very nimble that you don't overstep. You just a little bit violate the boundary, but then you step back. It's not to be manipulative. It's an invitation to play, right? But some people I have to then step back. I'm saying, okay, no, let's go over there. Let's talk to somebody else. Now,
it's
least,
quality.
what do you think about least? Because the thing about stereotypical is there's two things. Some stereotypes are wrong, some are right, right? So one thing I find is a bit of a wrong stereotype of ENTPs is, oh yeah, they like to debate and argue. And the word argue has different meanings. It's often taken as to bicker about something. I really do not enjoy bickering. I like sometimes playing devil's advocate and argue a point, maybe even picking another side with some. It's a bit of a banter, so it might have a competitive aspect, but I need to gauge my opponent, so to speak. And if somebody is really not of the same ilk, I will step back. For example, some ISFJs I might have offended, then I just step back and go into protective mode, like, okay, you know what, let's do something else. I dislike that stereotype because I don't think it's true. The few NTPs I've seen, it's too simplistic to say, oh, we like to argue and bicker. And if you go through common ENTP related MBTI stuff, you always find this, and it's just yawn. It's boring, right? I do like memes, but not just memes for memes' sake. So I kind of cheesied out of it. I said I don't like that stereotype is true, and I don't. Doesn't apply to me. But their question might have been different. Maybe Joyce is better in saying where I violate the ENTP stereotype, when I'm a deviant.
I think you're very clear ENTP. So I find you actually seem very ENTP. One of the most ENTP things about you too is how fast you talk. So extroverted intuition is also known for some people as a quick pace of speaking. Not everyone, but some of them. There's like a subtype of them because they are bombarded by so many NE ideas. They'll sometimes be more rapid when they talk because they'll be like, "Oh, I'm talking, I'm excited," and then I'm going to switch to another idea. And that's why I like to say like NE sometimes has frenetic energy. It feels like very excitable energy. You have that vibe to you.
So we didn't answer the question. We said what's the least. We just next.
You said debate. You said that.
Yeah, true, but it was kind of a cheat. I mean, I think I'm picking the stereotype I think is not true, and therefore it doesn't apply. I didn't say here's one that is typical. Well, anyways, next.
I guess one of the least stereotypical things about you is that you run the MBTI group in our area, and
It's necessity. I need you guys. Because if I don't run it, but then it's almost like other people want to take it over. But then I'm not a soup Nazi, but there's certain principles go against another stereotype that we don't have a, you know what? But again, I think that's not true either. FI, I'm not saying struggling with, but I don't have this gut feeling, but I have values. And for example, in a group, if I find people are trying to take over a conversation, I don't mind getting adversarial if I really find they're kind of bullying the group or particular individuals. And I feel a certain sense of ownership of the group. I don't want to micromanage it, but there's certain things that I would not tolerate, right? Like bullying or somebody just talking total bullshit, and that's my subjective judgment. So yeah, I don't know. That's probably it's also not a stereotype. Anyways, next tangent.
Boris says any train has left the building.
I haven't had much sleep, right? So I can control myself. But
yeah, we're both sleep deprived, so this is going to be an interesting episode.
But we sleep deprived separately. I just want to say that for the record. There's rumors being told about INFJs and ENTPs that might sometimes be true, but this is not an incident.
There's a certain section of the audience of the show that I produce, and they keep shipping me with the ESTPs and the ENTPs on my show. And so it's funny. It's so funny because of the golden pairing.
Yeah, I mean, it's stereotypical, but it's nice to have the shared middle functions, right? I mean, again.
That's true. And so what do you wish the general typology community knew more about your type?
Please refer to previous question. Next, no. Well, it's again, it's the simplistic. Oh yeah, they just like to argue, and oh, they have no morals. We do, but we just don't have. We don't have a moral value judgment on every little thing that comes our way, right? And we're pretty chill and tolerant, but it's an exaggeration to say we got no morals. We might be somewhat FI blind, but yeah, those two I would say fall into the ones I care most about.
Yeah. ENTPs are not sociopaths because of blind polar FI. That's
not because of that. They might be for other reasons, but
they might be for other reasons. What is your dream, Boris?
My dream. My NI is not that strong. There's not just one. And there's how many dreams do you want? For whom? For the world? Personal. My short-term dream is COVID's over. Social injustices will be taken care of. North Korea will become a respected and friendly member of the group of nations. I mean, there's many things in the world that I think should change. This is just like through one way to get to an ENTP, I think, is probably lack of FI, is appeal to FE. If you want to hurt me, that's really hard. I rarely get hurt, but if you hurt people that are close to me, that gets to me. Or if people are abused by the system, for example, I mean, I've had some friends. I find the mental health care system is quite horrid in the world in general, but especially in Canada, because I mean, people are just medicated. Somebody has, it's like, okay, you got mugged, beaten up by three big guys. Like, oh yeah, you can't afford counseling. Okay, I think we're gonna compensate for your Prozac deficiency. So here, take these pills. Right? It's there's so many shortcomings in that system. In general, like social injustice, right? I mean, if you look at where the world is going, it's the top 1% get richer, the others get poor, and there's so much unnecessary suffering, right? So ideally, okay, let's make a dream. I'll start a company. I don't have to become as big as Elon Musk. I have sufficient finances at my avail that I can pick my favorite job, which is beneficiary, and really try to make a difference on a variety of topics that are social in nature.
That's amazing. Boris for president.
No, I don't want to be president, because then you can't be president. You have to be the next Elon Musk or just a mini Musk. President, you have to sell your soul. Oh, look what. No. And, besides, we only have a prime minister, and after Trump, it's hard to beat. Anyways,
Has there been a mental, emotional, conceptual improvement in certain aspects of your life after finding out about your type?
in all these three categories, I was perfect. However, perfection can be improved upon. My type, I think it's more not so much my type, but the whole concept of cognitive functions and how they play into understanding self and others and relationship with others. So that's sort of a side effect, not specifically me being an ENTP. Maybe the fact that, I mean, I was struggling with SI. I learned the hard way that a little bit more SI and a little bit more focus and curbing of NE might be to your benefit. But I learned that relatively early because I'm an independent consultant, and I was a consultant most of my time. So you cannot dilly-dally. You have to deliver, otherwise you lose your job or credibility. But it's something that I had to kind of consciously work on, because the default would be just to let the instant gratification NE monkey run around in your brain and do whatever it wants. So yeah, insight in general about myself and people, maybe specifically that it's nice to focus a little more on focus, but I learned that even before I found MBTI.
That's excellent. Maybe it's improved your emotional health too, because you have amazing people like us in your life.
That's why I design FJs. I just get the FE vibe. It washes over my soul.
Why do ENTPs like to push people's buttons and enjoy debates or conflict?
Well, let me refer to the last question. Next question. No, any Y implies sometimes an assumption that's not true. Pushing buttons, I would agree to. It depends on how you define pushing buttons. It has a negative connotation. It is really, to me, I'm mapping them. I'm throwing ping pong balls at them. I'm not pushing buttons. It's part of the joy of exploration and also having an exchange and experience with somebody. Right? I learn something quickly, and E gets satisfied. There's something new, and yeah, ideally it leads to a connection. Now, as far as debates and conflict, debates can mean different things. I do like to debate a topic kind of in a jovial, detached, fun way to explore something. It's not to be right. I mean, this is another related stereotype. I don't need to be right. If somebody actually can convince me of something and I change my mind, I can say, "Oh wow, that's amazing." So I'm willing to. I will put up a fight, and I'm arrogant enough to say my TI will probably have built a nice structure that'll be hard to topple. But if you topple it, I applaud you, and I will become a believer of whatever you told me. Right?
Because ENTPs lead with the dominant function, extroverted intuition, a phrase to encapsulate that is, "This is my opinion based on available information." And so they're willing to shift their opinion if the NE ideas present otherwise very quickly. And so they're like, okay, if there's a more reasonable information coming in, then there's this quick pivot that you do.
Yeah, and this has to do, I often say, with truth. Truth is just my best guess of the moment. I do not seek absolute truth. I mean, I want to get close, but I'm not delusional. I don't think I'll ever find it. So and people have to actually understand that. If I have a conversation with somebody, if my FE is on, I say, oh, this is my opinion, I believe, and what about? But if I have somebody that's sort of hardened enough to be able, I say, I believe that's the case. I will just not word it and flower it up every time, but I have to do so selectively with different people. Sometimes it's nice to talk to, let's say, an INTJ. You can really talk and it's implied. This is just my opinion. I'm not dispensing truth. I'm just putting my opinion out. It's just as valid as yours. Let's have them meet. And then we have a debate, which is fertilizing each other's ideas and frameworks. Now, conflict, it might be related to conflict is, again, context dependent. I don't see conflict. I'm not like, I want to go fight. But on the other hand, I sometimes find conflict can be, if used selectively, a good way of eliciting an agenda. But it doesn't have to be harsh, or it can be, it doesn't have to be simplistic. It doesn't have to be like cavemen. But I find sometimes if there's an issue out there in a relationship or otherwise, I do like to confront the situation. It's like, okay, let's talk about it. It's like, you want to hear out the other person. Actually, little lesson. I always lesson. Haha, I'm blast. One thing I find I've learned in general, whenever you have a disagreement with somebody, you don't understand them. The way you resolve it is, it's like you let the other person go. I would say, hey, Joyce, we have a disagreement. I want to hear your point of view. And then Joyce tells me her point of view. And then I mirror it to her up to the point where she is satisfied with, like, and I ask, did I get your perspective as you experience it? And then you turn it around and let the other person do it. Just by that alone, that both people will be validated, at least they're understood. You make sure you understood them and they feel understood. If you do that mutually, most conflicts are not as visceral. Often things resolve themselves. And if you're willing to say, let's agree to disagree, right? So in general, conflict, I sometimes seek it selectively to elicit to resolve an issue, but it's not for its own sake. Right?
Yeah. It's interesting. So the topic of debates depends on how you define the word debate. Thinkers in general, when they talk together almost about a subject, it seems like they're getting very technical about it. So it can seem like debating if you're looking at like fellow T types, especially NT types, talking with each other. It looks like they're debating an issue, but really it's like mental jousting. You want to like puzzle piece solve an issue together. And so it's pretty cool there. Yeah. Also, NE sometimes likes debating too, because it likes to exchange ideas. And so what will happen is through that mutual sending of many ideas, it looks like debating. And so I heard LSD coming in. So what are your views on the nature of reality?
Whoa. I will not public, and actually, little aside, there's something called 1P LSD, which is actually illegal in Canada. So I may pursue that. Reality is, well, I said reality is a very subjective thing. It's something that I am trying to unravel, but I'm not arrogant enough to say I know it or will ever know it. And I often question it. This is actually a good way of, it might link to the idea of being a detached observer, because I find being ENTP, the essence of it is often being a detached observer of the world and even yourself. So it's a great source of insight, and you don't take yourself too serious. I don't think too many ENTPs are very depressed, because we can laugh about ourselves and things that happen. Now we get upset, as I do, when those close to me get hurt or bullied. But so detached observer might state or imply that reality is sort of something that's constantly in flux. And I'm willing to question it at any point in time. And it's almost like a cathartic exercise when life hits you in the face, kicks you in the groin, then to step back and say, okay, who am I? What's real? What am I doing here? And then you get sort of a detached move, like, I'm this weird monkey-like creature that has a sense of consciousness. maybe even a conscience, having an experience. And just there've been billions before me, there'll hopefully be billions after me. It kind of gives you a healthy detachment. Anyways, I'm sort of rambling right now, but
That's fantastic. Love it. And so, which types frequently forget street directions even though they have gone to many places many times?
so you ask an ENTP which type that is. I would say it's, and this is just for pun, it's the XX type, statistically speaking,
XX type?
versus XY chromosomes. That's a statistical correlation, actually. Getting lost, spatial memory is actually correlated to testosterone levels. Even in females, presumably females that have higher testosterone levels have statistically better navigation abilities in a spatial sense. So I made this was a covert sexist statement, but there's other, it's just a statistical observation. Now, which type? I mean, I think INFJs can be quite forgetful, as can be ISFPs, maybe, even though they're SEs. What do you think?
Yeah. It's dependent on the person. I had an ENFP friend who was really bad at street directions.
Oh, actually, I should have mentioned that too. I can think of two ENFPs right now, but they're just whoa, whoa, squirrel, whoa.
Oh, funny. And so, which cognitive functions do you want to understand better? What would you like to experience a simulation of for a day or so?
Okay, understand can be two different things. One can be sort of in a thinking sense understand. The other one can have a lived experience. I think I'm a masochist. I would probably go for 1 day of raw FI dumbness. I might need counseling afterwards for a while, but because I can see it, but it just so clashes often with my TI because I look at something and I won't go through a lengthy example, but there's two scenarios that to me look almost identical, but an FI says, no, this is bad and this is good. I'm like, I believe you. I just don't get it. But it's valid. It's just it's outside of my realm of experience. So yeah, torture me with FI for 1 day, and have some good meds for a day or two afterwards to recover.
Mm. How do you deal with the NEFE loop?
Well, it's interesting. I find the notion interesting because NEFE loop. I mean, most people know what that means. It's if somebody jumps over their second function, they have either two extroverted or two functions. Could loop as an NEF loop is presumably one example could be, I'm not saying, I don't think I'm too prone to it, would be a person imagines what could possibly be. I want to be liked by the world. I want to be liked by a person. And then you don't get that reinforcement. And then NE thinks, oh, what could be wrong? Oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And then a person could try something else to be liked even more to get validation. I might be blind. If I'm actually a jumper or close to jumper, the objective personality, I always want to say disorder, objective personality system kind of allows for NEFE, and it creates a valid type. I don't think I've been trapped in it, but I could be mistaken. Like for you, Joyce, what for you would be, well, NITI, you might be a jumper too. Do you find yourself looping in an unhealthy way?
Yeah, sometimes. I guess it's also how I deal with trauma sometimes too. Instead of fully feeling it, sometimes I'll intellectualize it. So like I saw this guy die through a car accident and then my brain
No.
instantly, instead of like fully feeling it, I also like kind of intellectualized it. I'm like, what is the underlying meaning to this event happening to people in general? What does it mean for existence? And then
Welcome to my world.
yeah. Personal thoughts on Jung's individuation process. Are you in the pursuit of it personally?
I I know of it. I might not know the best definition, but it's basically I guess it's sort of a development or quest to becoming truly you through experience. First of all, is that a correct definition, Joyce? Because maybe I'm answering an answer based on an incorrect definition, which would offend my TI.
Individuation is developing yourself fully, so
Yeah.
becoming less one-sided.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Then we have the same definition.
Mm.
I would say not even the one-sidedness. One of my highest abstract goals is really to become. Well, you could say there's two things that drive me in life, which are I seek. This is a little over the top. I seek enlightenment and I seek pleasure. Now, enlightenment is the ultimate goal, and pleasure could be hedonistic, but pleasure actually gets modulated by pleasure comes with pain, and enlightenment normally lets you like you don't become a hedonist because enlightenment makes you realize the consequences of your action. It's not just all about yourself, it's about the respective other as well. So I would say it's the one of the highest ideas to become the best I can be, but have some fun along the way. And fun can be intellectual. It doesn't have to be like simplistic SE fun, you know.
Mm-hmm. Fun follows you wherever you're at, Boris. You make things really fun and chaotic. Sometimes those are interchangeable terms because when you make something more chaotic, you could call it more interesting or fun as a byproduct. So,
But if you're an SI Dom, then that chaos might not be fun.
yo, bubble tea flavors, honeydew milk tea with egg pudding. Yeah, sign me up. If anyone has a bubble tea recommendation in the live chat, feel free to let me know and I'll try it in the next live chat. I mean, wait, in the next live video. I'm kidding. I might.
Wow, you're gonna peddle bubble tea. Right? Make sure that the one has bubbles and not just chunks of square jello.
Mm-hmm.
Oops.
And so, hi, Boris and Joyce.
I was about to say that looks like. Hey, Nathan, I owe you an answer. Anyways, we'll talk at the meetup tonight. You told me about the eights. It's totally cool. I just had a few things. I haven't posted it yet. I promised him to post an event for him.
Yay. Do you find it easy to balance TI and FE? Any recommendations on how to combine them well? I've always been impressed by your jumperness, by the way.
I don't know if he's talking about you or me. Maybe both of us. We're both jumpers. So, how do you feel today, Joyce? Are you TIFE or FETI?
Depends on the day.
Let me rephrase my question. How do you feel today, Joyce?
I think that my middle two functions are equally used, so I don't feel like one is stronger than the other. If I were to map what I think the function order is, I think you have the first function, which is strong. You have the last function, which is repressed. But the middle two functions, they're pretty equal weight. Like I
High
don't.
five, girl. That's
Yeah,
exactly how I feel.
that's at least
And
my
me.
experience.
Yeah. So Nathan, you're looking really handsome that picture. If you need a Tinder profile, put that one on. He's a handsome guy, but he looks exceptionally handsome, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love your distractibleness, Boris. And so, how do you find it easy to balance TIFE?
Honestly, I think it comes. I find it just is because they're so close. They're very comfortable in saying, "Hey, your turn." Depending on situation, it's probably something you learn over time. And this might be oversharing, but I find FE potentially. My father was a very complicated, I would say, possibly slightly sociopathic person. So I had to very early learn how to navigate people's behavior and anticipate it. Right. So maybe that's why I'm gifted with a slightly better FE out of the box because it was an adaptive pressure. Right. And this is I'm joking, but it's not. It might be true. Right. Because I
Mm-hmm.
find and you can probably relate it to INFJ. It's a gift most of the time. I can enter a room or I see a person I very quickly, with pretty good accuracy, can model their mental internal state and get a feeling of what they're about. And sometimes to a point where I have like friends that are couples and they actually call me. It's like one couple, INTJ, INFP. I moderate between them. Like I'm sort of the moderator. Like okay. Oh, hold on. Wait a sec. What are you upset about? What are you upset about? I credit FE to that, and TI is the thing I trust. It comes natural. Probably it does for you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fascinating. And so does TI internalize the framework logically in their heads?
Yes, next. Just kidding. It does. I mean, TI is all about having in my mind, I see sort of this connection of beams of some weird cube system that's like a bunch of stars connected by a bunch of dots, and every domain of interest has sort of a system that's this cube that grows. One nice thing I think about being ENTP, INTPs are the masters of building these cubes, but sometimes that's all they do, and you can't see them because they're behind the cube. I think I can say, okay, cube big enough, let's cut it off, either put it on the shelf or return to it and rebuild portions of it. But yeah, that's a very correct description.
Well said. I'll buy Joyce some bubble tea. Haha, lol, enjoy. You're the real one. You're amazing. Thank you for fueling my addiction. I
What
feel
about
more...
I should get an account. I won £5 too. £5, that's pretty good. That's $8.
Oh, I'll buy a bubble tea for you.
No, it's okay. I'm joking. I don't. Just carbs.
Hi, Joyce and Boris. Boris, you mentioned your relationship with devil's advocacy before. Is it based on your desire to explore ideas from another angle, or your own personal experience and beliefs?
Okay, is it based on desire to explore? I would say it's a desire to find truth being my best guess of what's out there. And I find it helpful and enlightening. And it's also fun. Like there's something nice about I think it's an experience in itself. Trying to be a fundamentalist Christian, I hope I'm not offending anybody. It's not in my nature, but there's some joy in hopping into that role, but it's mostly to get as close to the truth of the moment as possible. Now, the second part, or your own personal experience and beliefs, to explore, well, it's kind of both, right? I mean, these are two, the questions, yes, desire to explore this from another angle, and of course, also my own experience or belief, because my belief is my current best guess of reality. And there's something nice about it goes back to the detached observer. It might actually be a protective mechanism, because when something stresses me out, I get to step back from it and look at it from another angle. All of a sudden, I'm not trapped by the moment, by this petty experience that simple person called Boris has in this circumstance. I get to step out, become part of the universe, and look at it. But it also gives my soul some peace at some level, right?
Absolutely. And so, does being FI blind give you a very loose understanding of your identity? I'm an ENTP and I have no idea who I am.
Well, I think you're in good company. Nobody knows who they are. It's just we don't know who we are. um, no. Okay, they're just joking aside. By FI blind, he means having it. It's in the seventh spot, right? It's if you match all 8 functions. I do. You know what? I don't think I have an overblown sense of identity, and I'm not attached to it. As in, like, oh, this is B, this must be me. I think I definitely have an identity. Identity being something that I associate with who I am. But I guess somebody like an Vidom would say, don't you have a stance on everything? Like, don't you have this is good, this is bad? So depending on how you define identity, I think we have identity, George. You do too. That identity might just be, I don't really know what I am. I'm a seeker and I'm trying to explore myself, but I'm not too rigid in labeling me in one form or another, putting myself in a little pigeonhole. The moment you say I am this and only this, you just gave up on the thing you value most, which is NE, possibility, change. Right. So it's okay to not know who you are if it's measured by some rigid person's little box that they try to put you in. So your identity is you're seeking yourself, George. That's your identity. Yeah, you're becoming.
Yeah, your ever-moving target, your identity. And are you typed as an ILE, ENTP, also in socionics?
I've poked around in it. I believe I am, but I find socionics must have been invented by an INTP because it's very crafty. It's this over-engineered, maybe not even INTP. There might have been some.
ENTP, I think, was the creator of
Yeah.
socionics.
But it's a little heavy on the model and the rules, and I would say yes, but I do not know every aspect. It was just too tedious to get tested.
Serious question: why is Canada cold?
Well, it has to do with thermal convection and exposure to sunlight because you have this Earth rotating at an angle. So different angles give you a different flux of light energy. Flux being a measure of energy per square area. Because if you have an arrow pointing at pointing at something vertically versus otherwise, you have a different coverage. So yeah.
Thank you, Bill Nye the Science Guy. Hi, Joyce and Boris. Boris, who challenges your idea on a regular basis. Is it because they're similar in type to you, or because they're quite different?
Hey, Joyce. Is he asking both? I think he's asking both of us, right?
Oh, cool.
No, I'm trying to understand.
Boris, this is here.
It says, "Hi, Joyce and Boris." Okay, Boris, you challenge your idea.
Who challenges your ideas on a regular basis?
I'm just trying to say the ideas are similar in type. While type could be to you, or because they're quite different. He's saying I'm challenging my own ideas, but then he says because they're similar in type to you. I find the question a little, possibly I don't fully understand it, but I get a stab at it. I challenge ideas out of principle because I have learned the truth is constantly in flux. Now, if I'm debating another person or talking to another person, I will challenge theirs just sort of as an intro of initiating an exchange. But I do challenge mine as well periodically. Now, I don't know if I have answered Paul's question, if he wants to shoot another one. So it's both true. I challenge my own habitually, but if there are other ones, then obviously, if I'm having an exchange with another person, I would ask them, "Oh, wait a sec, you came to a very different conclusion. Now let's find out why you did." So them being different just triggers me on, hey, there's something to be learned or something to be figured out potentially. Not because I want to necessarily put them down, unless I have something against them, right? But that's typically it's just opportunity to learn something and to also hone my current worldview.
Cool. Who do you learn the most from?
Is that your question or somebody else?
Oh, it's my question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who have I learned the most from?
Mm-hmm. In your life, like, who are the inspirations for your current thought paradigms?
Honestly, it's a continuous stream of exposures to situations and people, I would say. Challenges that come to me, and often I learn vicariously through others. Do I want to go on a tangent? Let me think. Yes, I do. Okay, this is a little tangent, but it's sort of, I look at life. Life is, this is an analogy. Imagine you're in like a big factory hangar and it's all dark. It's totally dark, and you just come into existence. You're like a naked, but it's dark, nobody sees you, creature walking around, just trying to move somewhere, and you're like hand crawling on your force, touching your way in your environment, trying to figure out what the world is about. And the world really is in that hangar. There's some nasty appliances. There's machines that are dice that come from the top who just try to push you in place, and then all of a sudden you can't move anymore. It's like there are these traps in life that can really debilitate you or limit your growth. It can be, oh, you're 12 years old, now you or your girlfriend's pregnant, or you're born in you're born into the lowest caste somewhere in India, and there's no way of getting out. So I think I've been I've been fortunate. I've been walking through that hangar, and a few times I've escaped, and this was not any of the specific examples. I've escaped these moles that come from above, try to push me into place and limit me, and I learn from the almost accident. So I get a better picture of what this hangar I'm crawling around in is about, and it's escaping certain traps that were facing me, but also often having people close to me suffer and being able to help them or learn from their suffering. That, and it's a continuous flow of that. So there's no one person that has changed me. It's often through misery, though, your own or often somebody else's that I get to witness and learn from, and hopefully help them resolve.
Fascinating. With extroverted intuition, there's a lot of SI data points that made them who they are. So oftentimes if you ask them what's that one thing that made them think that one thing, they'll be like, well, it's a lot of things. Like it's this thing and this thing and this thing. And
I can give you a bunch. I can rattle a few things. For example, one thing that kind of changed my life was I said my dad was kind of he was a brilliant guy, a genius at some levels. I mean, some of his patents got ripped off, whatever. But he grew up as a poor farm boy. He was forced to become a butcher, which he hated. He wanted to be an opera singer. He had an excellent voice. He was actually one of the guys who used to sing at the Metropolitan Opera. Said, "You come with me, I'll train you." He was one of, in terms of voice, one of the best tenors he could have had. But life didn't allow him to do this because of how he grew up and how his life went. But he was also very oppressive. He, he wanted to impose ideas on you. And one thing that really was important to me was my elementary school headmaster. He donated me a radio. It was like my dad was sort of, oh, you got to listen to opera. So I had this radio which allowed me to listen to the shows that I wanted to listen to shape my own taste in music, but also to listen to talk shows that were about, I don't know, space aliens, or it gave me a chance to individuate, to form my own person because I had access to information which was kind of shielded through an oppressive force. Right? This was like at early elementary school. So in a sense, that person probably shaped a lot who I am now because he gave me that access to the other information. So he's dead now, but I credit him for that.
oh, that's an amazing story. So yeah, oftentimes with any users, they will have a hard time narrowing down their influences to like specifically one thing because there are a lot of moments in their life, like SI moments, that kind of like shape who they are. So you'll get more complicated answers from any users when you ask questions because there's
I would have given that because I would have either said none or I would have given you 50. This one stands out though because I think it was at a critical point in time in the individuation process.
I agree. Yeah, yeah. And everyone has those totems that are especially important to them, that have impacted them, that are in your FI, Boris. See, you do have some.
I do have a FI, really?
I'm kidding.
It's right next to FU. Maybe you just covered it.
And so, what I often hear from other ENTPs is that they don't have established morals, but they have principles. What are your personal principles, Boris?
Interesting question. It implies certain definition of the two terms. I kind of agree with it. Because when people say morals, morals to me sound like rules. It's a rule book. This. Principles is a little more abstract, possibly bendable. Now maybe I'm going to use a moral now, but it's basically live by don't do to others what you don't want to have done to yourself. Trying to be open-minded and tolerant. I have a real issue with bullies. I haven't been bullied myself, but I've seen people bullied around me, and that's one of the things to get under my skin. And then I become very sneakily vindictive. I just say, like, I won't go into detail, but I've two people I managed to get fired because they were bullying friends of mine. And the nice thing is they didn't even know what happened. Like one time, again, not too much detail because this is online, but basically a friend of mine was being bullied by a big guy who wanted to become CEO of a branch of a particular company. I became my friend and I was goading him on email to get him to say something that he would regret. So I was using their email account, and then the person could go to HR and say, "This is how he treats me." And this was the second complaint he had. He did not get the job. He was gone. So yeah, principles, open-mindedness. Try not to abuse people or take advantage of them. Have some empathy. And another open principle is that relates to open-mindedness. Like, I do not like dogma. I do not like being told you must do this, you must do that. So I'm not a big fan of structured religions. I mean, there's different flavors of it. But I think I'm rambling now. So let's go to the next question.
Oh, it's nice. You stick up for the little guy. You prevent bullies from getting their way. And you're smart about it. You're able to FE and NE finesse your way to ruin their lives. That's interesting. And so Jordan Peterson believes that the Big Five is a much more reliable system. What are your two thoughts? See, the thing with the Big Five is that it's a behavioral system, so it's trying to capture your behavior, and so it's easier to capture. The mind is the final frontier of science, and so because personality has to do with your cognitive process, right now science isn't good enough to capture your cognitive process. So the reason why Big Five gets a lot of credibility is because it's behavioral, and when it's behavioral, you can measure it, and when you can measure it, you can validate it superficially. So the Big Five is amazing. I love all personality systems. It's just different than the 16 types because it's measuring behavioral traits, like the 5 most prominent behavioral traits of human beings, but it's not fully tackling cognition. And so I think they're fundamentally different systems. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Boris?
Well, somewhat along the same lines. And Jordan Peterson, shame on you. He presumably is a fellow ENTP, at least according to objective personality dudes, no? This will be a question later. I think Big Five is probably better for the market that MBTI tried to occupy. I mean, Big Five might be better at predicting a person's performance in a corporate structure based on metrics that they care for. Whereas MBTI is by nature a little more murky. It explains more motivation rather than being tied to an outcome that, for example, an HR person can measure. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I think Big Five is probably more successful in the HR domain. Because even in MBTI, the difficulty is already, it's so hard to type somebody consistently. And what does that mean? Predictive powers in domains of interest for employment, Big Five is better. But yeah, I mean, sorry, you're the expert. You're in HR, right?
Yeah, the 16 types is good for understanding relationships. I believe that the most important things in life can't really be measured, and so it's the more meta it gets, the harder it gets to measure, and because there's a lot to it. I don't have enough sleep to answer, but yeah. Do you find some MBTI connections to be less fulfilling than others, or type has no influence?
Now, this implies sort of friendship and relationships. Would I interpret that correctly, Joyce, based on your awake?
Yeah, I feel like you can also answer the questions however you interpret it too, because
Of course, I can. I
even
was just interviewing.
even your interpretation of the question shows something about your type sometimes. So I think
I
it's
was
cool
just
to
trying
see
to
what you
I
read.
was trying to FE bomb you because I would just sometimes I just have fun with it. Okay. Well, I want to answer this with some FE. I think the answer is yes. This is a statistical statement. I'm sure there's some types that if I encounter them, probably am more likely to connect with than others. I don't know, since Joyce is a equal opportunity MBTI, I don't know if I want to pick on any particular types. I've done that in other videos. There's some types that I am more likely clash with, at least initially, than others. But definitely there's a difference, statistically speaking. But then there are always the outliers, which I find very interesting. There might be types that Even we have an N group, but there's some people that are not N, and they actually feel comfortable in the group, and they have an interesting contribution to the group. So I do like outliers, but statistically, definitely. I mean, let's do on the positive side. Before I even know MBTI, I had a set of really good relationships more in a work school sense, like people that were my lab partners, people that I would regularly do problem sets with. And later on, I looked back at them, and it turned out all three of them were INTJs. Now, statistically, that's very unlikely. That I mean, INTJ is fairly uncommon, and to do that 3 times in a row. But there is some dynamic that really works well if you pair me with an ENTP with an INTJ, because I
Mm.
mean we have each other's backs in some ways. So there's definitely some types that stand out as better. By association, others may not be as good. I'm not saying they're bad. They're just if there's great ones, there's some that are not so great. Just like if you go see a doctor, half of the doctors you see were at the bottom half of their class. You just have to live with that. It doesn't mean they're bad doctors, but yeah.
Mm. What is the best self-development advice you can give other ENTPs?
Mm, I would say if you're fairly young still, try to work more on focus at an earlier time. It's still nice. There's a benefit. I think there's a benefit in being sort of ENTP-ish because we often do really well at the very end. No guarantees. But I recently saw an interesting statistics actually. We're talking about incomes of different types. And for the ENTP, they had two columns. They had one which was like 40%, and the other one was right up there with the ENTJ. And they said, and it depends on whether or not our brainchild or startup worked or not, right? So if you can more early on focus on a little bit of SI, it might make your life easier because you will probably end up valuing it later on. And it's not a total change of venue. It's just giving, again, my example was I used to study the day before the exam. It didn't work. Now I study 2 days before the exam. It worked great. Make such accommodation. Don't study like the week before that because that's a waste of time.
Yeah, a quality of extroverted intuition is on an extreme end. If someone is very like overusing extroverted intuition, they can hold possibilities at equal weight. And what this causes is an indecision. So sometimes when you can see so many possibilities and one doesn't seem clearly better than the other, it can sometimes cause a difficulty with picking one thing. And so oftentimes, like maybe that's why, Boris, you talk about how later on in life is when ENTPs really hit their stride. It's because originally their NE is like, I see so many possibilities. And then,
Whoa! Dopamine rush. Whoa!
yeah. And then later on, they realize I have to pick one thing to get better at it. So specializing, SI, a word to describe it is specialization. So learning to kind of pick one thing or just for now pick one thing, it helps you get into your SI because it's about getting into the nitty-gritty of this one sensory thing, which is the growth path. Yeah. Um, what
And
are
it's painful.
what other pieces of advice would you give?
To an ENTP. I mean, that was the big one stand out.
And also, chat, feel free to ask questions. You literally can, sky's the limit. Boris.
Oh, we're on the last question. Now I have to fill in some time. Let's do a song and dance. No, it really is the key focus. I would say is if otherwise I would be making stuff up. Well, I think it's something that comes natural to an ENTP, but something that I would just to learn. I don't know if ENTPs start out. I'm not saying I was suffering from severe shyness, but there was a time when I was a little younger when I was too afraid. I mean, I was afraid of rejection, right? Let's say in a dance con, you got to ask somebody to dance. In Germany, we would dance with. But I think it was in my nature to experiment with it, because one day I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it anyways. And I learned that the fear of rejection is normally 5 times worse than being rejected. It was almost like I had this epiphany moment where I asked somebody, then I said no. It's like, oh, okay, ask somebody else. And then you actually get better at it, because then you become kind of cheeky, saying, well, are you going to be my unlucky number 3? And then all of a sudden something opens up, and you're like, even rejection you can turn around. But it's having that initial courage to, and this doesn't really have to be dating specifically, having that courage to just overstep a certain boundary and then let your nature run free, and you'll be surprised, wow, I got a mouth and I can turn this around. So often when I when this is out of context, but I find, if I, let's say, meet somebody, I want to get to know somebody, even just for fun as an experience, I prefer, of course you prefer acceptance, but I actually prefer strong rejection over indifference. Because if somebody says, get lost, or oh, I hate you, you got something to work with. But if indifference is the worst. So, but these are things you only learn if you're willing to experiment. I think I've talked to some other NTPs. When we were young, we might have been shy at some level, at least, before that that mouthpiece came to be, and like, oh yeah, I can turn this around. I can, give me something to play with. Now I can play. You told me off. Well, what is it? Is it my shirt? Is it? You had a bad day. Come on. Do you want to? Okay. Do you don't want to dance? I'll be your counselor today. Okay, tell me what happened. No, no, no. You can trust me. I looked, and you can make something of it, right? It's getting going, and then something happens. But it took me a little bit of a while. Mind you, that was like fairly young stuff.
Yes, yes. You touched on a good point about rejection, and I think it's a thing that a lot of people deal with. And I consider it a trauma response. I think a lot of people's lives, including mine, when we have negative patterns, it comes from our trauma response. Because when you experience a really strong rejection and it hits you really hard, that also shows areas in yourself where you're soft, like you have a bruise there, and something hit that bruise and now you're in pain. And so getting really hurt over rejection means that there's some unhealed thing inside you. And so everything is a signal. And if we pay attention to what rejection tells us, it tells us about our inner state. And so I don't know, it's good to kind of go towards things, because fear and rejection means there's something on the line, and something on the line means it might be something important. And it's good to always put an effort towards important things if you can. And so,
Yeah, and to that end, I mean, it's more, I think it's a person's mind feeding on themselves, because if it's maybe an internalized thing, if you mull over something, I find often it's run towards it. It's almost like something I learned early in life. Actually relates to a dream, but it's fine. If something fears you, run towards it, dance with it. Because otherwise you turn a little chihuahua that barks at you into a monstrous pit bull. So it's almost a counterintuitive. Do the opposite of what you feel like, because otherwise you're trapped in this self-defeating loop of uh, what's the word? Self-defeating loop. Things look bigger if you're afraid of them. If you run towards them, you at least have a sense of agency. You're not a victim, right?
yeah, the scariest part is typically the beginning of things. And once you get beyond that, it's not as scary. Our imagination is scarier than the reality itself. So when we're able to conquer imagination, we can conquer most situations.
Yeah, and imagination is a neutral statement. It's often a, in the moment, very pessimistic projection of what is possible. So it's almost like, because imagination can also say, hey, what can I do with this? You just told me you hate me. You don't know, do you know me? And that you get something to play with, right?
Oh,
What's your
that's
relationship?
amazing. What's your relationship with conspiracy theories?
Thank you. He gave me some support. I can define it. Well, they do exist. Conspiracy theories exist, and I think some of them are appropriate, some are not. There's some that I actually believe in. So Um, relationship. I think many of them are at least worth looking at and seeing if they tell you something that's actually going on. You don't have to follow them blindly, um, but I don't dismiss them offhand if they just come my way. They're often entry portals into some insights that are worthwhile having and possibly uncommon. Um, for example, I mean, just to go on record, I do believe there's systemic forces at bay that really lead to an increasingly impoverished middle or lower class, and the few at the top are doing really well. And I don't know if that can be stopped. I would like it to be, but there are all these. There's sort of a middle layer of mercenaries that are very willing for an extra few bucks to just sell out the little guy or the guy that works for them to please somebody who ultimately just serves some rich fellow somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so,
Yeah.
and some others are absolutely crazy. I find crazy. Like, for example, I'm not pro vaccine in every instance. I do not take the flu vaccine for reasons that I can talk about. But COVID, there's some conspiracies out there where people say, "Oh, it's about taking away my fertility," right? And it's there's these make your own judgment, but there's just some real crap out there, and there's also some statements that are worthwhile looking into. Use your judgment. I'm open to them. I don't follow them, but I examine them with TI and then either sign off or discard them.
That's a good balanced view. And so, Boris, would you say that ENTP INTJ is a better match than ENFP INTJ, just to get the questions flowing?
That's so nice of you. No religion, no religion, no, no. It depends on what context. And this is fiscal statement. I can vouch for ENTP, INTJ in a let's get things done together and be friends context. Haven't dated any INTJ, was very close, but anyways, that's the story. Um, now ENFP, INTJ, I do not know. In a work context, I'm not so sure, but there are ENFPs out there. There's some stereotypes about ENFPs that are also not true. Now, it might be explained by the jumper, because if there is an ENFP jumper, they would be NETE, which is quite a formidable combination, right? But I would say in a work context, I would bet on the ENTP INTJ. Romantically, maybe ENFP INTJ are just as good, maybe even better a match, because I mean, they're just so different, right? I know one friend of mine actually, one of the INTJs who was in that group of three. He made an ENFP lady, and they are, you could say, the perfect couple, right? He is totally mesmerized by her wild out there ideas. She likes his rigor, and they meet in the middle, and they have a happy little family. But these are just isolated data points. So if I had to, I would say in a work context, I might go give ENTP INTJ the edge. Um, Romantically, ENFP is probably just as good. I can't tell if it's better, but this is conjecture. I'm not an ENFP. I don't have a data point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are the types of the people that you've been with? I know you've been with a lot of INFPs. Are there any other types?
Um, Not all that I could confirm. I would say, well, confirmed were, I would say, one or two INFJs. INFPs was, I mean, now that's out there. I think I once dated three INFPs in a row, and it was an interesting experience because we often connect on the shared NE. Right? We would meet, I mean, in the middle of the night, somewhere it was work context, and you could just brainstorm. And what I really love about INFPs is the authenticity. They cannot help but be authentic, right? Things get sometimes challenging though when TI and FI collide out of the blue, right? Because happy ENT bounces around, and all of a sudden you offend one very specific hot button uh, issue of that an INFP feels strongly about, and that can be very difficult because it just sometimes doesn't make sense to me. So I had to learn, okay, don't try to argue it or debate it, just hug it out. But often these things can accumulate, and I might seem insensitive to, for example, I mean, just one example. It's a slightly longer story, but a person was vegan and tried to convince me that um, humans are actually biologically made to eat only grains. I'm like, hold on, that's an interesting scientific thing. So I'm like looking up stuff and making a counter argument, but then they get really, really, really upset about it because how do I dare? I mean, they know humans should eat only grains. And I even was trying to build a bridge. I said, humans are actually special creatures. We have the technology so we can make food from grains so that we never need to eat another animal again. So we are metavores because we have the ability to do so. So we actually are now endowed with the ability and responsibility to choose if we want to eat animals because we can just live off. And she said, oh no, this is not. You're missing my point. Humans had so. I was just as argumentative as they were, but in in the end, that didn't work out.
Metaphors, that has a catchy ring to it. And so, with a lifetime being a limited resource, what do you think is essential to all the types or just yourself to concept to realize before it runs out?
Yeah, that's probably something we might be, at least at a young age, struggling with because we're just like in Wonderland, maybe less so than ENFPs, but almost as pronounced, bouncing around, experiencing new things. You still do you need to learn that you need to have at least some idea of how do you want to budget your time because time is ultimately the most valuable thing you have, right? And that's not too apparent to us. For example, little things. Uh, if I don't have a TV. There was a time when I watched TV. Even now, if I watch TV, I tape the show and start watching it half an hour into it and skip over all the commercials. I mean, this sounds almost anal. That's something that maybe an ISTJ does, but it's time is so precious, and it's even to us it appeals because it's the opportunity cost. We know there are different experiences. There are the ones that we consider more worthwhile than others. You have a limited amount of time, so if you're slightly better at budgeting time or recognizing real wastes of time, you can have more of the good stuff. You get more of an e kick. But yeah, but basically, I'm just restating his conjecture. What do you think is essential concept to realize?
The only way to know how to budget your time is to know what matters to you too. So it's kind of to figure out what is worth your time and what isn't early on. Or else if you
Yeah,
don't
that's
control life, life will control you.
you said that really nicely. That was a good NI statement. It was subconscious to me, but yeah, it is. You have to kind of have at least a hierarchy of these are the things that are important to me without being too anal about it. But at least you need to sort of poll yourself periodically. Okay, what's important to me? It doesn't have to be the big goal, but hey, what's important to me? What I've done sometimes in a work context, maybe partially personally, is I set myself little time boxes saying, what do I want to achieve today in what time frame? And then I kind of cut off. I might still go a little overtime, but I cut off all the extraneous stuff. Um, this is basically the thing on steroids to say, what do I care about rather than random jolts of dopamine? So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Another concept to realize before it's all over is whether the relationships or the job in your life or the people or anything in your life is to ask yourself two things. Does this take me away from myself or does this take me closer to myself? Because at the end of the day, you live with you. And so if you keep living out of alignment with who you are, you will not be proud on your deathbed. And so to respect your future self, it's to kind of figure out if the things in your life take you closer to who you want to be or take you further away from who you want to be before it's too late. There is never too late, but the sooner the better, I guess, with that. And it's a lesson everyone could learn. So it's hard too to know what takes you closer to yourself or what takes you away from yourself because in society you're conditioned to not pay attention to your needs or your wants or your values because you're bombarded with different messages all around. And so but to live with yourself in a way where you don't hate yourself, because a lot of people, they drown in self-hate, and people just don't talk about it. So a way to not regret or like dislike yourself in the future is to actually ask yourself who you want to be in the future, so you don't live in a way that betrays yourself. Because sometimes self-betrayal, it's accumulated slowly, and people don't notice it until it's a long time. So it's kind of like the frog boiling in the pot of water.
Mm.
If you throw a frog into hot water, it'll just jump right out. But if you put a frog into a pot and you slowly crank up the heat, it'll stay in the pot until it dies. And oftentimes, self-betrayal can be like that. We can sometimes betray ourselves in little ways, and no one notices until it's too late. And I think it applies for every human being on the world. And so that's something that's
Honestly, I think that's awesome. That's a very NI insight, which I much appreciate actually, because I mean, you can only measure yourself on that scale if you at least have an idea of where you want to be. And maybe the good thing is to work on that idea. It might not come to us, but if you're at least mindful, it's something worthwhile. I really appreciate that. Was a very NI statement. It's subconscious to me, but it really it was great. And
cool.
you're like half my age or somewhere around there. That's amazing.
Yeah. Sometimes, like when I finish talking throughout my whole life, people go like deep, and then they just stop talking, and I'm like, interesting. Like,
You know how they say every type might have sort of a permanent age, and I think the stereotype is the ENTP is eternally 24, and the INFJ gets born 96 or something like that.
agreed. Regarding the NE monkey you mentioned earlier, how do you bridle that beast in a way that makes it possible to achieve consistent results that pay the bills? And hi, Joyce and Barb.
Yeah, Gilbert, that is a challenge that we will all have to face. I think it's just reining yourself in and along the lines of what's important to me, and to realize, yeah, you can run around. I mean, you can spend 4 years in university. My first degree was easy. I did okay, but I lacked kind of some focus, in part because I was overcompensating for having gotten away from a home that was kind of oppressive by my somewhat difficult father, right? But it's just trying to have a moment of reflection: is what is important to me, and to narrow it down.
So, what is important to you, Boris? What strikes your heart or your mind?
In an abstract sense, it's still kind of pursuit of knowledge and some type of insight. Bills need to be paid, and I'm self-employed. I'm doing okay, although I'm possibly vulnerable because I'm in a vertical field. But recognize the precious of time, and make sure you know what matters to you. What matters is, to me, is growth. I mean, ideally, I'll be 96 and I'll still be doing stuff, learning stuff the day before I die. But also people, like value your relationships. It- You have to turn a lot of stones till you find people that are worthwhile to keep in your life. Fight for them, be their best support, and cherish those relationships, and know all these things are transient. So appreciate it, and try not to lose yourself in little bickers about things, or chasing false gods. Ultimately, I think relationships are probably the most important thing. And even people say that uh, being socially isolated is more of a health risk than smoking, diabetes, or heart disease, right? Your relationships are probably what matters the most. Um, Try to cultivate at least a few. If you think you have 5 or 6 friends, you're very lucky. If you think you have 100, you're delusional, right? So
How many friends do you have, Boris?
I would say half a dozen, plus
Mm.
minus two.
Cool.
And I tried hard, but
And so, how do you experience the TE critic function in your life trajectory?
okay, life trajectory. Now I know oops, what happened there? TE, I think okay. I've done some tests and they're not too reliable. There's some tests to try to tickle out how you use all functions. Now they're not official, they might be flawed, but I scored fairly high on TE. I find once I know, okay, there's a deadline that I can't move, I need to get something done. I think I can actually wheel TE out of necessity, which might go against type theory. Um, because I sometimes get frustrated if we're down to the wire, let's say on a project or something needs to get done, I can get frustrated with a person that just dilly dally tells about how horrible they feel, why they shouldn't start. So I think TE is almost like a mode I can slide to out of necessity. It's not my preferred mode, but once I say, you know what, I'm going to hit that deadline, uh, I need to get something done. Talking about what the gentleman asked before, if I want to keep my keep my job or this position and be valued, I need to produce. And then all of a sudden, certain things fall away. I'm willing to cut some corners. I still need some contingencies, maybe more than the average TE user, but necessity brings out TE. I think possibly in most of us, if we're not trapped by some feeling that makes us loop in an unhealthy state. So I don't know if that directly answers the question. That's my interpretation.
Yeah, we have access to all 8 functions, guys, so you can exhibit behaviors from any. And plus, necessity is the best teacher, so if your situation requires, you can learn it. What makes it different than a TJ using TE is TJs use it generally. Like, that's where they start off. So type is where you choose to start off, and but it doesn't dictate where you end. And so there's that. Um, so, how did you figure out which career to pursue? Not sure if this was asked already.
Not directly. And for me, it was, I mean, I kind of stumbled into it, but I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to become a veterinarian because we had animals, loved animals. Then I got totally into physics and I actually did a physics and math degree. And then I realized, especially in Canada, unlike Germany, where I'm from, if you're a physicist, they treat you like a moron. Like most engineering jobs I can do, no sweat. But so I said, okay, well, I better add a engineering degree to it. And just, I think being ENTP, you have sort of a tendency towards being entrepreneurial, independent, and you don't mind risk and chaos. So I really slid into a consulting career through engineering. I did a co-op term and I chose a consulting firm. So then most of my life I've worked as a consultant. And consultant is something that would probably be very appealing if you're technical, which you might be if you have a TI at the second, because it's not drudgery. It's normally you deal with chaos. You have to use your brains, your wits to produce something that was never produced before. So it gives you room for creativity. FE does help, especially if you're self-employed, but in general, because you need to manage client relations, right? This is actually what I learned in my first few years. It's probably more important than the technical skill. Ideally, you have both, but to understand what the client wants and ideally give them, or at least give them the illusion of what they want, or be able to sell them on something else. So I slid into it. I came from a technical side, but then it was just something innate that says consulting is for me because I had a choice at a boring sort of factory. I'm like, f that. This sounds like an interesting company. They send you out, you do nothing. They give you the book, and you better know it in the morning. That was very appealing, and I could see other ENTPs ending up in consulting or entrepreneur. Right.
Yeah. The common struggle with ENTPs is once you get past the learning curve, like when you learn 80% of the job and it starts to become repetitive or you've learned everything you could learn about it, it starts to get a little stale. So that extra 20% to completely perfect and master it, sometimes it's a drag.
Yeah, and the nice thing about consulting is you never know it all, especially in a technical sense. Nobody knows it all, but what people value is you have the core skills. Like, I mean, I can program in any language. I've worked on mainframes. I've worked on Unix systems. I'm probably going to do cell phones. There's something common among all of them, and so I think smart man, at least in a consulting context, they hire you not based on your skills. They hire you on a core skill set, and then an ability to very quickly fill in whatever 5% you need the next morning. And that's why consulting is, I think it's a great field to be in for an ENTP.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What are your projects about, Boris?
Now, are you talking about work projects? Well, one work project is to maybe renovate my apartment, but that's been going for a year and that hasn't really been going. Um, Now, I'm interpreting this as work projects. What I love about it, one of my main clients is an engineering consulting firm, and what I find is architects and engineers, they have very sophisticated software that allows you to model a building down to a screw. So they have all that information, but they're horrible at using it or managing it because it's like an overload of information. Let's say they build hospitals, and it's not, this is a great company. This is nothing about the company, it's something about the industry, which I fell into. So I actually have a relationship with a bunch of managers there where I literally walk around. They know that I can sort of bridge gaps, manage their data, pull out data, create utility, create programs that lets them do stuff which they either can't do or take some weeks manually with a lot of errors. So it's very satisfying because I'm a one-stop shop. I'm a salesman. I chat with them. I say, okay, show me your problem. I I pitch something to them. Then I build a prototype with already funneled so that it can actually morph into the real thing, and it's super satisfying, right? Because I get to brainstorm. Here's one thing which I don't know if that's typical of an ENTP. I don't like okay, I don't like working in groups or large groups. I actually am almost like very protective of what I do because I know I'm often at the edge of what's possible. I can do it myself, but if I have to delegate, I don't want to do that. I mean, I have to really pick my team members. And there was a point in my career where I was actually at one point I was managing 8 or 9 people, and I hated it because I was accountable for their shortcomings. They would throw me some students, they were selling over $100 an hour. So I either want to be self-employed or have a select group of no more than 3 or 4 that I can work with, and it's sort of a democracy. I don't like hierarchy. So management positions, I mean, you could probably get by with it, but it's not for me. That's where my ethics get. I feel useless if I'm just somebody that pushes people around and makes excuses. I don't want to do that. It's for me that's a waste of time. I would rather innovate myself and be in a group, but I don't like delegating. I mean, this is a bit of a tangent, but it's probably shared. I've met some ENTPs. They we recognize each other. Right? In hindsight, now it's like I know who's ENTP. It's yeah, we have the same mindset. It's like, let's get shit done. Let's have a little bit of risk, and we get this in by Friday. Yeah, okay. Well, Thursday night we pull an all nighter, but there it is, and it works like a charm. That's a perfect life experience.
Your ENTP all-nighter crew.
That's right.
I realize I'm passionate about many things rather than one thing, a characteristic of ENTP I found out. How do I make choices that will be beneficiary in my career without compromise?
Good question. It will be an ongoing struggle. I think you will find some themes. I think we can't really do something, or if we have the choice, we will not do something that we don't have a passion about. I'm passionate about software and systems and improving stuff. So you want to maybe find something where the general area gives you enough of what you want. And then you just need to remind yourself, look at opportunity costs. It's like, well, yeah, I can do this and then I'll still be in mom's basement. Or I can do that and I'll have a modest little apartment. It's not a big thing for me, but still, I want to be out of mom's basement when I'm 30. Find something where you see a potential that it might offer you enough of what you need, and then muster your inner ENTJ every once in a while, or INTJ, and say, look, this is good for me. More fun tomorrow if 4 times more fun. It's like the what's it called? The marshmallow test, right? Leave it for 5 minutes, it'll be better off. And you can still have fun because you don't want to go between the two extremes. If sometimes if you come from a family or maybe cultural background that is rigid, you must do this, you must do that, I think you're going to struggle as an ENTP. You need a bit of a mix of, you need some fun now, but you also need to find something where you can see yourself having enough stimulation, but also that leads somewhere.
Yeah. Here's the second part of the question. How do I keep diversifying things in my career life without half-assing things since I'm so interested in switching fields constantly?
Again, it's putting that monkey on a chain or training it, that any monkey. Pick some, see, and you don't have to pick one favorite, but pick a limited number, 2 or 3. And then I think I've learned to kind of weigh them next to each other. It's always nice to have a plan B or a plan C, but rank them in order and stop after you get to F, because you're just going to F yourself over otherwise.
Nice one. And so Gilbert asks, a fun question, Boris. You mentioned these things. I'm a huge fan of Bill Joy, if you get my drift, not to mention thing and thing.
I would say, I mean, VI, but honestly, it's been VI is, if you know how to use it, I prefer VI. I haven't used it in a while, and I'm working a lot on Windows now, so I've been sold out. Well, you're a fellow coder, are you not? And you look, we're sort of in the same half generation, so maybe we should talk and see what company we can start. I'm trying to decide, do I jump into iPhone mobile or or Android? There's pros and cons. What's the new thing? Swift is a little nicer now, but this becomes tech talk, I think.
Cool. The struggle I'm facing right now is I'm trying things, but I'm afraid of being typecasted into one field since one door leads to another once you're rolling. Advice?
Yeah, I don't know if you're ENTP or not. You may not be. I still think have 1 or 2 backup plans that might be similar or tangents or different. And really, it's easy. This is simplistic. It's not an easy question to answer, because we can all be painted into a corner either by our own actions, by where we come in from life, or what life throws at us.
It's a general characteristic of high NE or high SE to constantly want to switch the things that you do because there's a value of novelty there, and sometimes it can, for some people, cause a hardness to commit to one thing too quickly. Yeah, a mutated.
But honestly, I don't find that I had to jump around. I had multiple interests.
Interesting.
But I think it can work in your favor. It depends on field you're in. If you're like in some bank where you're a drone, you have to work your way up and innovation is discouraged, but then you're in the wrong place. But if you find yourself a little niche, either a startup, a small company, or a consulting firm, people will actually appreciate what you bring to the table. Like I would call it, you have a versatility rather than a propensity to jump around. You might move around in a certain domain of interest, but I haven't had the feeling where, oh, I want to become a nurse practitioner, and now tomorrow I want to be a truck driver. I mean, I didn't have that. They were sort of they're clustered in an area of interest, I find, for me at least.
That's fascinating. And so the ENTJ in the live chat, who's on my panels, Barb, says I'd help run that company that you and Gilbert formed together.
All right, that's good. I guess we'll have to use VI then, right? I gotta repractice. I mean, it's a great editor, but you know what? I can't even. Well, one of my clients, they don't let me install it. Here's the irony for Gilbert. He probably appreciate this. I'm building utilities. I'm not allowed to compile anything. The soup Nazis won't give me permission. But Now I've written myself extensive VBA libraries. I do everything in Excel. I can friggin' format the hard drive, but they're okay with it because it's all hidden in XLSM. So much for Nazis. But anyways.
As an Enneagram, do you highly value or like the concept of entropy?
Entropy, I mean, lucky I have a physics degree. Entropy is sort of the tendency towards chaos that's kind of baked into how nature works, right? Value, I mean, I accept it, right? I mean, value, it's hard to say. I can't say, oh, I really value entropy, but I accept it. Because now, if you're being philosophical, entropy really means everything is, in the long run, heading towards a common denominator, which means every area in space will be the same. Entropy is kind of boring in the end, actually. It's chaos till everything's the same. But if you're physics guy, you probably understand that.
Yeah. And so, Joyce, do you have another live to do tonight? Tonight I'm recording an SJ panel, so on the SJ temperament. Yeah, I'm gonna try to get in a nap before then. Thank you for your concern.
She said, "Oh, that Boris guy." I said, "No, very smart. I can make it 3:59. 3:59. I'm going to take a nap because I have another X hour meetup tonight. I might not go too long. I have stuff to do for tomorrow, but."
Yeah, I'm just showing the comments so people can see. Oh, cool.
And don't pick on Joyce. That's my job.
Hey, that's no one's job. I pick on myself. Wait, actually, no, it's more fun. You're more creative with your picking on, so.
Well, it's hard to pick on yourself. There's no surprise, right?
That's true, yeah.
It's like chess novella. Have you ever read chess novella?
No.
I don't know if you want to. It's about a guy who learns to play chess against himself in order not to go insane in war captivity, but then he sort of goes insane. It's an interesting story. Anyways, maybe you'll find it, maybe not.
Cool, I'll check that out. And so thanks, Boris, for coming out. Even though we're both sleep deprived, I feel like I've been hit by 6 food trucks, and now I'm just chill because I'm like, yeah, you know what? Nothing phases me now. I've reached spiritual transcendence because I'm so tired that everything seems either funny or chill to me.
Welcome to my world. Maybe who do you turn into if you're sleep deprived?
That's a good question. And so, Boris, you're really silly, funny, goofy, playful. Actually, playful on steroids. You joust with me, but in terms of humor, you just poke at me as a person because I think you can see how much I react or something. So it's funner to pick on me. 8s like to protect people from getting bullied, so then they can bully that person. It's like, hey, other people don't get to bully you. I get to bully you.
That's right. I protect them saying, she's mine.
Barb, the ENTJ, says, thank you both. Great interview.
Thank you for spending your valuable ENTJ time with us, because I'm impressed. ENTJs are hard to come by. They normally, I got 500 things to do. I've done 487. I won't have time to hang out. but joking aside, I mean, about ENTP, I do like this. This is kind of my natural social self, but in a work context, we are very different. Just saying, with the right people, it's totally matter of fact INTJ talk with a little joke on the side. But that's one thing people should maybe not over stereotype. It's contextual. Behavior is very contextual.
Agreed.
Us, I think.
And so thank you everyone for asking your wonderful questions in the live chat. You're all family to me, and this sleep deprivedness makes me feel drunk on oneness. So we are all one, at least for today until I go take a nap.
You take a nap, I'll do the same, and then you'll have some stuff to do, and I'll have a meetup.
Cool.
So it's been fun.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.